Hey, cool you're watching. I made a couple of stories about mostly Carl Jung, who I find very interesting to read about. So I thought, why not make small stories around 10 minutes about the way he perceives life. Come and join me in my story and see if you like it. And leave a comment if you find anything special or want to discuss, because for me it's a very interesting subject. See you here. It usually begins with something going flat, not a catastrophe, nothing you could point to in a conversation. The life you built is still there, the work, the people, the routines, and one morning you notice that none of it is reaching you. The things that used to feel like achievements feel like admin. Conversations you once enjoyed feel like performances. You find yourself in rooms you worked hard to get into, wondering when you can leave, and underneath it, a question with no words attached, running quietly all day. Is this it? Most people treat that as a malfunction, something to fix, medicate, push through, or wait out. Carl Jung would want to know something else first. Not what went wrong, what is trying to happen. Start with the strangest part, because it is the part that makes everything else make sense. Jung's view of psychic energy was that it moves and that it can be withdrawn. When energy is invested in your outer life, that life feels vivid. Your job means something. Your ambitions pull at you. The people around you seem important. And when the energy is pulled back, when it withdraws inward, the outer world does not change. It just stops being lit. That is the grayness. It is not that your life became worse. It is that the light was taken off it. Freud would largely have read that withdrawal as a problem. Jung's break with him was partly here. Jung thought the withdrawal often had a purpose. Energy leaves the surface because something underneath needs building and it needs the fuel. So the flatness is not always decay. Sometimes it is a construction site with the lights off. Now, why does it happen when it does? Because the persona was built to solve a specific problem at a specific age in a specific world. You put it together in your 20s, the role, the competence, the way of being that got you accepted and got you established. It worked. That is exactly why it lasted, but it was designed for the first half of a life. Jung's observation was that you cannot run the afternoon of your life on the program you wrote for the morning. What solved the first problem becomes the thing that prevents the second, and nobody sends a notification when the term expires. So you keep running it competently for years after it stopped fitting. And the sensation of that, of maintaining a structure that no longer has anything inside it, is exactly the flatness we started with. Then the second thing begins, and this one is less comfortable. As the persona weakens, whatever it was holding down starts coming up. Old anger about things you were sure you had made peace with. Grief that arrives from nowhere over something 20 years old. Desires you find embarrassing. Envy. A hard, unfamiliar honesty about people close to you. Dreams get louder. Many people notice this before anything else. Dreams that are vivid, strange, insistent, and stay with them into the afternoon. None of this is new material. It is everything you filed away in order to function, to belong, to be acceptable to a family, or a workplace, or a marriage. It did not decay in storage. It waited, and the moment the lid loosened, it moved. Jung called the whole descent by an old name from Greek myth. the night sea journey, the passage through the dark that the hero does not choose and cannot shorten. Here, I want to stop and say something that most videos on this subject leave out, and leaving it out does real damage. Not every collapse is an initiation. Sometimes flatness, exhaustion, and a loss of meaning are depression. Sometimes they follow a bereavement, a burnout, a physical illness, a period of sustained stress that would flatten anyone. Those are real conditions with real treatments, and interpreting them as a mystical transformation can keep someone from getting help they need for years. The romantic version of this idea is dangerous precisely because it is flattering. It is much nicer to be undergoing a symbolic death than to be unwell. Jung himself did not go through his own confrontation with the unconscious alone or casually. He had a practice, a family, work, and enormous discipline of writing and drawing, and people around him. He was explicit that this territory can overwhelm a person. So, if what you are in has weight to it, if you are not sleeping, not functioning, if it has lasted months, if it frightens you, the correct move is not to interpret it more deeply. It is to talk to someone qualified. That is not a failure of the process. In Jung's own frame, that is the vessel the process needs. Assuming it is what it looks like, there are two ways people reliably damage themselves in this phase. The first is demolition. Something in you knows the old structure is finished and it wants that expressed immediately. So people quit, leave, sell, move, end the marriage in the second month, and call it authenticity. Sometimes those decisions turn out to be right, but almost nothing is lost by making them 6 months later with the more of yourself present. Decisions made at the bottom of this tend to be reactions to the old life rather than expressions of the new one, and reactions are still being defined by the thing you are leaving. The second is inflation. That is Jung's word for what happens when a person identifies with the material coming up. Something genuinely large surfaces, an insight, an image, a sense of significance, and the ego grabs it and wears it. You have met this person, they had an experience, and now they are chosen, and every ordinary event is a sign, and they cannot be spoken to. Inflation feels tremendous. It is also the most common way this whole process derails, because it converts a difficult transformation into a flattering story about yourself, and then nothing further has to change. What actually gets you through it is much duller than either. Jung's word for it, borrowed from alchemy, was the vessel, the container that holds material under pressure long enough for it to become something. In practice, the vessel is made of ordinary things, structure, getting up at a normal time even when there is no reason to. The obligations you keep not because they're meaningful, but because they hold a shape around a person who currently has none. Some form of expression, writing, drawing, walking, anything that gives the material somewhere to go that is not a decision about your life. And one person who knows what you are in. Not an audience, one. That is the whole toolkit. It is unimpressive and it works. Then there's one question worth carrying through the entire thing. Jung's most useful contribution here was that the psyche is not only pushed from behind by the past, it is also pulled by something ahead of it. He read symptoms as purposive, as attempts, however clumsy, to correct something. Which means the question is not only, why do I feel like this? What happened to me? The other question is, what is this trying to make me do? What has this been asking for that I have been declining to hear for years? Almost nobody sits with that seriously because the answer is usually simple, inconvenient, and known. The last thing worth saying is about how it ends, because the expectation is wrong. It does not end with clarity arriving in one piece. There is rarely a morning where you wake up and know who you are now. What happens is quieter. The pressure lets up slightly. A few things start mattering again, and they are not the things that used to. A number of ambitions you carried for 15 years just fall away, and you notice you do not miss them. Your life gets smaller in some directions and much more solid. And the version of you that ran the old arrangement does not come back. That part is real. Something does die, and there is grief in it. And the grief is appropriate. You built that person carefully, and they served you well for a long time. They were just never the whole of you. They were the part that got you here, and here is not where you were going.